Oh, the star of 790, The Ticket, highly questionable Dan Le Batard joining us on the program. How are you, Danny?
Tom Brady's house has an actual moat. I'm not making that up in case there's some sort of dragon problem. He's got an actual moat around his house.
You know you've made it if you have a moat, right?
You are bored with buying things if you're telling the architects, hey, you know what, I don't need a body of water as a view. I need it to protect myself.
But wait,
people might want to swim the channel to get to me and my model wife.
Does he have a drawbridge, though?
Well, I think now, I'm not an expert in moats, Dan, but I would imagine that with the moat would have to come a drawbridge.
Okay.
I don't see the point of having the moat unless you go drawbridge there.
The best athlete house, most impressive house you've been in?
Well, I wasn't in it, but I've been told marvelous things about Shaquille O'Neal's home, and there's this great story of Michael Jackson going into Shaquille O'Neal's home. I mean, there were all sorts of, things like rooms he could get into with fingerprint and stuff like that. And Michael Jackson sat on Shaq's bed, Indian style, and told Shaquille O'Neal, I can have just this bed. I'll buy your entire house.
Is this the Miami house? Was that on Star Island?
No.
Orlando.
No. You can't get. Not even Shaq can afford that. Shaq can't. No. See, Keon Dooling was on Mickey Harrison's boat one time with Shaq, and Shaq had a house on Star Island, and Mickey Harrison lives in a boat near Star Island. And Keon Dooling looks over at Shaquille O'Neal as they're walking around this boat, and he says to Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, you ain't got money. This guy's got money.
Well, yeah, he's a billionaire.
There's that. Can I digress just for a second?
Absolutely.
Here, Dan, and light up Fritzy. Fritzy, mock headlines. Turd Man is the best you've got on the mock headlines.
It was a rough day for him.
But he gets desperate, Dan. And it's always, he goes potty humor when he gets desperate with mock headlines there.
And he got you, too. That's
yeah.
The only place
No, you know what? That's fake laughter. You know, that's just called TV laughter. That's all that was. You're watching last night, and there was a moment in the third quarter where I don't know if you felt the same way, but I think LeBron looked around and went, where the hell is everybody here? And then they decided that he was going to go Cleveland Cavalier style on the Indiana Pacers.
What the terrible matchup this series is for Chris Bosh, it's why he doesn't want to be a center. It's why he didn't want to play center, because Roy Hibbert devours him. Wade can't get around anybody. I mean, he's hurt, and so he just can't get free throws. Like, when they beat the Pacers in the postseason last year, in 3 of the 6 games, Dwayne Wade had double-digit free throws. He had a 30-point game. He had a 40-point game. He had double-digit free throws. He's done that once 3 months, Dan. In the last 3 months, Dwayne Wade has gone once on double-digit free throws. The thing that I find interesting is the Indiana Pacers have absolutely gotten Miami to play the way they want Miami to play. Yep. Okay, mid-range jumpers, LeBron, go ahead. Mid-range jumpers for Udonis Haslem, go ahead. But when they go in, what are you going to do?
Well, I think that, and the telling point was in the post-game comments where he is thinking about Cleveland. The reason why he left Cleveland is he had no supporting cast. He had no help. Now, all of a sudden, he said, I had to go back and go all Cleveland Cavalier on him. How concerned would you be if you're looking at this team? I know they talked about 5 and 6 and 7 championships. Steve Kerr said the ceiling is 3 at max.
Well, here's the way that I would say that it works, okay? And I guess the hopeful Miamian would say this is Dwayne Wade injured, not Dwayne Wade aging, that this is not the Dwayne Wade that LeBron is going to get in the future. But let's say, given his kamikaze style, he doesn't play a very good mid-range game. It's going to be a precipitous drop from here. LeBron, if he loses, that's what will create doubt and introspection and change. Winning isn't going to create those things. If he wins with Wade hurt, one of his best friends in the world, it's not going to create those things. But we're in an interesting place with this Heat team in terms of stakes, Dan, because if they don't win the title this year, they go right back to being a disappointment. This year they've been celebrated as a success, but if they don't win the title, 1 in 3 years is not what these guys got together for. And if if they lose, then all the questions about LeBron leaving are going to be in play again.
He's Dan Le Batard, Miami Herald, also his show on ESPN2, Highly Questionable, 790 The Ticket, radio host. If Chris Bosh is the guy who sort of fascinates me. It's one thing that you don't like a matchup with Roy Hibbert, but I would hope if you're brought in as one of the so-called big three, you would be able to contribute more than you are. And it's as if he doesn't know where his place is on this team from night to night. Why is that?
Well, one of the things they've done this year is they've just taken him out of the post completely. I mean, they've turned him into a perimeter jump shooter. They've turned him into a three-point shooter so that LeBron can have the proper spacing. Everything has been built around LeBron here. The shooters they've brought in, what they've asked Wade to do, what they've asked Chris Bosh to do. And what you've seen in this series, and this is damning, you've got Udonis Haslem. He's made as many field goals as Bosh and Wade. That's not the plan. And when you have that, you're going to have Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh, if the Heat had lost last night, well, engulfing Chris Bosh today would be really unpleasant with 7 points and 5 rebounds. But they didn't lose. And these guys say, Chris Bosh is the smartest guy on the team outside of Shane Battier. He's really introspective. And what he said when this whole thing came together and they lost in the first year was, you don't know the kind of sacrifices you're making until you're actually making them. This is the sacrifice. You want to win, Chris Bosh? You are going to turn into somebody who in this round is going to be found in chunks of Roy Hibbert's stool.
Wow, where do I go next after that? We're talking to Dan Le Batard of Miami Herald joining us.
Fake laughter, Dan.
Yeah.
Fake laughter.
No. That was more of a gasp. That was like a Gordon Gee gasp and then fake laughter after that. Chopped up. You
go
find
straight to the fake laughter. You got to help me out.
I know.
Come on.
Well, we had nipples and girth on the show yesterday, so now we're going stool segment there. So thank you, Danny, for lowering the bar a little bit there. The one thing I was thinking about with the San Antonio Spurs, I think that Indiana is going to look back with regret that they have created the tempo in this that would allow them to win this series. I expect Miami to move on, but then you have San Antonio who can create tempo as well. Have you looked ahead to that matchup, even allowed yourself to say San Antonio's waiting? What do they provide that's going to be different here?
I love that you asked me that question as if I was Coach Spoelstra and I wouldn't have looked ahead to that series. Of course I've looked ahead to that series.
I didn't know if you're going to go, we're taking it one game at a time here.
That's the series everybody wants to see, Miami, San Antonio. No, Dan. I'm focusing on the present. Can't look.
All right, answer the question.
The Spurs are interesting because Ginobili's kind of a shell too, like Wade, and they're a confusing template for me because there's no precedent for a team that wins a bunch of championships with its trio, doesn't win for 6 years, and then all of a sudden all those players still stay together and they get back to the championship round with a reformed team where Duncan's no longer the centerpiece and Tony Parker is. What I find interesting and I think favors the Heat, the Spurs are not a good rebounding team. Miami will do things against them rebounding that they can't do against the Pacers. The Pacers are uniquely qualified to bother Miami because of Roy Hibbert and their long perimeter defense, number one perimeter defense in the league. I saw San Antonio have problems with an athletic Golden State team. That Golden State team made the Spurs look old. I think the Heat can do the same thing, and by virtue of LeBron being super athletic, I think they can also make the Spurs look old. Memphis didn't have the right pieces to bother San Antonio.
Will you use the stool reference on any of your shows later today?
I will not.
Okay,
Dan. That's
good.
exclusively for you. I only use your show as my personal metaphorical bathroom.
Thank you, Dan. Have a good weekend.
See you later, buddy.
All right, Dan Le Batard. And some bizarre references. And you know what? When you're hearing the words come out, and they're coming out in slow motion, and I'm going, I think he's going to go there. I don't know of any other show in America that will get a Roy Hibbert stool sample reference today. But you know what? We'll keep an eye and an ear out for that.